my name is Foster Hirsch. I'm a film historian and professor of film at Brooklyn College, and I'm here to talk about film noir.
Hello, let me talk to Mr. Mars. Oh, hello, Eddie. This is Marlowe.
What are the characteristics or identifying traits that you need in order to qualify as full-fledged film noir? I'm on the board of directors of the Film Noir Foundation, and we've had some, let's put it this way, philosophical or aesthetic disagreements about films that deserve the noir designation.
I've got to see you tonight.
So what are my identifying characteristics? First, it has to be a theme and characterization. Characterization of the middle-class person, usually the male, tempted into crime through lust or greed.
I want you to be nice to me, like the first time you came to the house.
It has to be the role of fate, mischance, or destiny. Agency is always qualified in these films. There's always some dark force hovering over the characters. In terms of plotting, there has to be a sense of the world closing in on the characters. These are not stories of empowerment. They are stories in which power is taken away from people. The characters are often driven by the plot. They are not the agents of the plot, they're the victims of the plot. There has to be a crime. If your story, no matter how dark it is, or psychologically dark or visually dark, if there isn't a crime, it's not film noir. These are crime films. There has to be a certain look to the film, but I think that can be pretty broad. Originally, in most of the 40s films, there was a high contrast lighting called chiaroscuro, high contrast between light and shadow within the frame. So there has to be a dark look. The mise-en-scène has to be filled with shadows and darkness and bar-like shadows on walls. There are a lot of shadows of Venetian blinds in film noir that give the characters a look of being entrapped or enclosed. But can you have a film noir with bright lighting, mostly bright lighting? You really can. Probably though, even within the white lighting or the bright lighting, there needs to be an image of entrapment or enclosure. These are films in which characters feel psychologically, physically, emotionally, and in terms of plot, trapped and enclosed, and you need to see that within the frame. Diagonal compositions, vertical compositions in which characters are boxed in, all these are important parts of the film noir mise-en-scène. You don't need all of these elements in order to qualify as noir, but certain ones I think are essential. The psychology of the protagonist, crime, and a certain visual style emphasizing imprisonment and entrapment.
You aren't exactly the sort of a person you pretend to be, are you?
I'm not sure I know exactly what you mean.
Why did film noir begin in the early 40s? Why did it end in the late 50s? Part of the reason is that the first crime cycle, the gangster saga, really had a relatively short lifespan, from the late 20s to about the mid-30s. So by the time of the early 40s, a new kind of crime film needed to be told. It was not about gangsters. It had to be about something else. And so these films, not about gangsters, not about the syndicate, not about the rise to power of the gangsters, not about Little Caesar or Public Enemy or Scarface, were crime films about everyday law-abiding citizens who, through greed or lust or psychological failing, or because, like all of us, they have a touch of larceny, entered into a crime scene or were overtaken by a crime scenario. And I find that motif more intriguing because these are films that are about law-abiding, bourgeois, middle-class characters. In other words, characters really just like you and me who have a touch of larceny and who slip into crime through various reasons. How they slip into crime has an enormous breadth, an enormous span.
Only sometimes you wish he was dead.
Perhaps I do.
And you wish it was an accident. And you had that policy for $50,000. Is that it?
That was the foundation for the stories of film noir. How could you be overtaken by crime? How could you become a criminal if, in fact, you were not really a criminal? I think that's the heart of film noir. That cycle pretty much ran out by the end of the 50s, and then by mid-60s, with a movie called Point Blank in widescreen and color. The sensibility is different, the visual style is different, the flavor and tempo of the films, all of these are different.
Suddenly I began to drift toward Mal.
And we call these new style film noir, neo-noir, and neo-noir really continued to be made in one fashion or another. It's not as though film noir died in 1960. It was reborn in about the mid-60s in a new flavor called neo-noir, and it continues to be made. What we're talking about here is the classic era from early 40s to late 50s.